So just to kick off, first of all, happy to have you back for another split, of course. Yeah, I would imagine you feel good, but I want to ask you, how do you feel after this perfect start from EXO?
I feel really good just because of the way we played on stage. Of course, beating two teams that you might fight for a playoff spot with, and like even a world spot, is just a really nice start. Just release some pressure. Um, but primarily the way we played, it feels like we performed really well in Korea. We had really good scrim results against top teams from LCK and LPL. But after we came back to Europe, we held on to that for a week or so. But the last week we kind of started to struggle a bit. Maybe it was like the pressure of the LEC nearing, and there's a lot of stress involved with that for every player and coach. So that we go on stage and actually perform basically above our peak in the Korean bootcamp, because we took a lot of learnings from there. So it's like we played like a scrim in Korea, but with the learnings that we took from that on top of it, and just showed really dominant games. I think that's just what makes me feel really good, because it just gives a very secure feeling for the future, like for the next games and next weeks. It's not that we accidentally won a game.
No, the games were more than clear, like especially the one yesterday. Like it was just a one-sided stomp, and seeing Excel in such a form is really, I would even say, surprising to some. But what do you think is like? What would you say is the core difference maker in this? Was it just you guys deciding to keep the roster and just developing it further?
I think it's the players staying together, and I just have to come back to the Korean bootcamp, because I think that is really the difference maker, maybe on top of the crowd. Again, we learned so much in Korea. Like we really had, so we're Excel Esports. We play sixth in Europe. And when you go to a Korean bootcamp, you don't expect to practice against the best teams. You don't expect them to want to practice against you. You're a small organization. But there we are. We scrim a lot against SKT. We scrim Top Esports, EDG, Weibo Gaming, FunPlus, RNG, G2. It's just one top team after the other. So we just got fantastic practice. And when you practice against those teams, it's also wanting to prove yourself. So every player is firing on all cylinders for almost every day, compared to where you sometimes have scrims in Europe, where even against a top team, you might after 3 games like relax a little. But when you play, let's say you play against scrim against SKT, you're not gonna give less than 100% in game 4.
Yeah.
You want to prove yourself against that team. So I think everyone was firing on 100%, like all cylinders were going during the solo queue in Korea and the scrims, and we improved so much as a result.
But I'm curious, was there a point where, so you went to Korea, right? And you start winning against the top teams. Was there a point that you were thinking, are they just inting in scrims, or are we actually insanely good?
Not really either. For us, it was more, or at least for me especially, so Nelson thinks very highly of the Chinese teams and just that they're like the best in the world. So we had a lot of fun when we were beating some of the Chinese teams to really rub it in, we're like, oh, this Chinese region is not that great, just to try to trigger him a little bit.
Yeah.
So we had a lot of fun with that. I felt like we were always kind of humble and grounded, and there were teams that were like stronger than us. Like we scrimmed like 16 games in SKT, and yeah, they are just fantastic at the game. We won like 4 out of those 16 games. And,
Which is still an achievement against
yeah,
T1, right?
For us it was, right, because SKT was really peaking at the time. So I felt like we stayed humble, because it's not like we won every scrim.
Yeah, and do you think this experience in Korea actually made your meta read a lot better compared to other teams in Europe now?
No, I actually think it had 0 influence, but that's mainly because the big patch came on May 25th, and we bootcamped until May 31st. So even on like May 26, 27, 28, we were scrimming against the MSI teams. Like we were like helping G2 prepare, and we scrimmed against SK Telecom. So on the old patch, on the MSI patch. So it didn't feel like we got a head start. We just came back to Europe and did our thing. What I would say is that we scrim more than most teams. So for example, the Thursday, like the day before LEC start, we actually played 8 games of scrims instead of like the normal teams, they play 5 games, but we were like really pushing out the games, trying to get a read on the meta, which actually was why we first picked the Yuumi when Misfits banned Lucian Kalista. So then we actually figured out that if this happens, then Yuumi might be a good champion, based purely off of those scrims.
And you have been developing insane. It's just a commitment, no? It's commitment from all the players. Even, for example, Nukeduck received a lot of criticism in the past, but I think right now we're seeing like really big performance from Nukeduck, and he's a core part of the roster, no?
Yeah, for sure. I think he actually had a pretty good spring split and was getting recognized for that. I think he did a good part for the team, and he's a player who always gives the same level of energy in scrims. And when you have some wilder guys well, everyone else, it's nice to always have someone who just gives like high level energy in scrims, in reviews, and has so much game knowledge all around. So he's like a backbone of our team.
And also a champion Ocean, right?
Yes, for sure.
So you've been on the right path this year. You started, you went to playoffs. Now we're seeing more improvement. I know what you're gonna say, but I just want to ask you, what is the realistic goal of Excel for this split?
Internally, we want to make worlds. Like whether that is realistic, I leave up to other people, and I think people will judge that on a week-by-week basis. Right now, everyone thinks we're the gods of Europe and we're gonna make worlds, but we also know that this in like 2 weeks you can suddenly be in the middle of the pack again and or not look so hot, or teams figure you out, or you do a missed draft somewhere and then you lose a game against a weaker team. And yeah, so public opinion can change really fast, and I think it's just we want to make worlds. We've been really clear about that. And I think the bare minimum is doing better than Spring Split. Like if we don't do that, then we've really failed. But I think that is really easy. And then whether we make worlds, it's up to whether we keep our form.
And do you fear that the pressure might get you at some point if you continue playing like this and just winning? Because if you keep on winning, there will be high expectations, right? Everyone will, as you're saying, everyone will think that you're the gods of Europe now. And then do you think the pressure can get to the players and maybe kind of influence them?
I'd say if we keep winning, I'll take whatever comes with it. I do think that we might be prone to getting a little bit maybe we might build some egos from winning too much. So we need to try to stay
It's normal.
And keep this. Yeah, it's very normal. So we need to make sure to keep the same level of commitment and energy.
Yep. And you've been coaching a lot of rosters in your career, right? What would you say makes this one different to the others?
I've had a lot of good rosters. Maybe this one in particular, I think something that stands out is that all 5 players are part of the draft. Like they are like as passionate about drafting and giving input on it. There's always like players that are like, they see the spreadsheets and they're like, oh, this is not for me, just pick me, whatever. But we are really committed to doing drafts together, and I feel like that has really shown throughout the entire season, really, that our drafts have always been good, and that every player is usually happy when we leave the stage.
Yeah, we've seen that for sure. Last question on cassette, top 3 or 4 in the league, or this time it might be closer than...
I think the top 6 should be very close together. Theoretically, on paper, Rogue, Fnatic and G2 just have like the experience and the rosters to be in the top 3 and be farther away from them. And I think if we keep up our form, we will definitely be part of that pack. And yeah, Vitality and Mad Lions are then 5th and 6th. I don't know.
It's really tough, huh? Like,
it's
just the 6s.
Every week I'm waiting for Vitality to get their shit together, because if they do, they'll be a powerhouse. So it's just like, when is it going to happen, if at all? And Mad Lions on paper looks really strong, but I haven't seen enough from them in either scrims or on stage to make a strong statement about them.